Very good morning, everyone. This is Mathieu Lamolle from the International Trade Center, ITC. I am market analyst and expert in sustainable trade issues at the ITC, responsible for the building and maintenance of the Standards Map database. And so it's my pleasure to give you a brief demonstration of the Standards Map web tool that is currently made available online and on which we are building a customized interface for users for the floriculture sector, among which the FSI members are key stakeholders that are providing us with feedback on how the tool can actually be customized to their needs. So maybe just starting with a few words on my organization. So the ITC is an agency of the United Nations. We are based in Geneva, Switzerland, with one clear mandate, which is to assist and support businesses in their roadmap towards sustainable trade. So we are focusing efforts on primarily producers, exporters, SMEs in developing countries, but nevertheless, the whole spectrum of the activities and programs of ITC are globally available to everyone on the planet. So ITC has developed a program which is quite big called the Trade for Sustainable Development Program, composed of three major components. The Standards Map database and website is the major component, but we also do cover two other elements: the research and publications type resources center and capacity building, which encompasses conferences, training workshops, and such activities directly in the field with local partners. We recognize that there is a proliferation of standards, logos, eco-labels, that it's becoming confusing not only for the producers, the exporters, the traders, but also the buyers and the policymakers worldwide. So this is why ITC, as a neutral agency of the United Nations, decided to build this central database where users can actually compare and contrast standards that are of their interest. And that information is currently made available online. This is the standardsmap.org website. In order to access the full tool, you may be required to create a user account. It's nothing more than an email address and a password. So I'm now switching to the live tool and connecting to it vis-a-vis my own credentials. So I'm just, as you can see, typing in my email address and password. So the whole setting up of a new user account is very easily done by just clicking on the free registration button. And once you have it, you can actually navigate to the very whole website. By logging in, you land on the main tool module, where you can see that there is a navigation bar enabling you to identify standards per your areas of interest, moving into a quick scan module where you can analyze their main characteristics, do some comparisons, and then for those producers or actors through the supply chain that are interested in joining or becoming compliant to a certain standard, then they can do also a self-assessment. In terms of the floriculture, we do have a number of products, including flowers and plants and other similar byproducts. So the FSI platform would be customized to only display those and remove from the whole list of available standards the ones that do not pertain to particular floriculture type products. So in this case, just for the demo, I will select flowers as a starting point. As you can see, automatically the list of standards is being updated, which means that in the whole list below, I will have standards that only pertain to flowers that basically do operate in this sector one way or another. So you can, by just checking the various options, select one or other options that would pertain, that will help you getting more detailed about how to become certified. And if you would be interested in knowing more about the features of, say, MPS standards, you just select them and then move to the next module, which is the quick scan. The filtering of standards can also be enhanced by using more options. The more option would actually enable you to select those standards that focus on certain environmental issues, social issues, or economic quality, business integrity. This is really up to the user to select what he or she is interested in using to select the standards. Once you have selected the interested standards, then we invite you to click to the next module, the Quick Scan Review, which will give you a higher level of information about the selected standards. So as you can see from the control, selected standards appear on the top with their logo. The quick scan menu is composed of a vertical menu where you can actually go from a general overview of the standards towards information about their potential interoperability and recognition of other standards as being somehow the same, or this type of mutual recognition, bilateral recognition, or one-way type recognition of standards. Assurance processes, so everything dealing with audits, claims and labeling, costs step by step, contacts, and even some more options that are a little bit more detailed vis-a-vis the whole dispute resolution mechanisms, international references, etc. So this is just basic information, a kind of a helicopter view about the standards. By just clicking on the logo, it would refresh the page, and as you can see now, we have fair trade data or flow verde information that would be displayed on the screen. The quick scan is also composed of a horizontal menu, a hotspots menu. And this is where graphics and visuals are automatically generated, giving you the perspective about what is the standard about. What does it cover? It covers primarily, in the case of flow verde, environmental issues, social issues, but they do also have components related to economic development, quality, and ethics. The Fair for Life perspective would have probably a slightly different spectrum of data and information and focus, with a lot more on environment, on social than on environment, right? We are not at this stage making any comparison between Fair for Life or Fair Trade, Flow Verde, MPS, and so on. We are only looking at one standard at a time. The bar charts that is coming up later is just about their hotspots coverage in the database of ITC. Would you not be interested in some elements of the graphic? Just remove them directly from the legend. The quick scan also offers you a full picture of the standard and the various options that and hotspots that they do cover. So as you can see, I mean, we do have the whole architecture, and you can just dig in from the one section to the next and check, in this case, biodiversity, impact on wildlife populations, wildlife species and resources, GMOs. So anything related to those issues as they are flagged in the standard can be accessed here. And by hitting the More Information button, it will open a pop-up showing you exactly what is the source document. So those standards do work directly with ITC to validate their information in the database. And we know that the version 2011 of their standard was reviewed last time. There is a web link directly accessing the Fair for Life standard and the text coming from the standard. It goes on and on for each section of the database, so you can review step by step what are the various elements of the Fair for Life certification program when it comes to those various hotspots and issues. And actually, once you have learned enough about the one standard, you can definitely go to the next and actually check out for the fair trade certification issues and the structuring from hotspot requirements. What do they require? What is the timeline for completion and compliance? So a lot of issues have to be met up front. Those are immediate actions type criteria. But then Fair Trade also has a continuous improvement program where they bring producers hand by hand, step by step, year after year into compliance. And those elements would then be displayed with the Fair Trade data just below the graphics. This is about the quick scan review about the standards. This is where now we invite you to go to the compare module. And the compare module is where the same logic of displaying some graphics and visuals and then displaying the full data would be used. So we start again by putting some visuals together, and those are actually showing up the standards on the same graphic. So now we have Fair Flowers, Fair Plants, Fair for Life, Fair Trade, and Flow Verde on the same visual. It starts with a web spider that gives you the full perspective, the standards on top of each other, and then the perspective about their respective degrees of obligation. You can also just go into one section of the database, in this case, for instance, environment, and redisplay another type of graphic. Would you not be interested in some sections of the database? You can just remove them the same way from the legend by hitting animals and livestock is not relevant for floriculture. Maybe climate and carbon would be used in a different benchmarking exercise, same with energy and forestry issues. And as you can see, as we click on the legend, the graphic evolves. The work that we are doing with the FSI is really to make sure that those visuals are already pre-adapted and pre-customized for the floriculture sector, so that the user would not have to do this. It would be pre-loaded for him or for her. So this is one example on how we will be leveraging the whole database of the standards map for FSI in particular. Interestingly as well, I mean, some of the standards comparisons would encompass the setting up of a certain international reference, just because some of the retailers do have some use of global gap as an environmental reference, a stepping stone for the standards compliance. So this is where you see you can actually select a certain reference from the set of selected standards. You can also modify your selection and say, for instance, that you would like to call in data about global gaps. So you just adapt your selection, update the shortlist, and automatically you would have global gap that will be appearing on the screen. And if you would like to have a certain reference being global gap itself, you can just drag and drop the standard in first position. So this becomes your reference. If you set up the landscape and say, well, let's just make a fixed reference as a global gap. So I just want to make sure that the global gap criteria have to be covered by any other certification program. Just update the screen and the whole analysis, visuals, and graphics will then be displayed. So this is where, again, you will be invited to navigate through the different elements and checking out from environmental perspective, for instance, what would be covered by the one standard or the other, or on the quality issues, for instance, which kind of elements would be covered. When you go downstairs in terms of the various elements of the standards, then this is where you will see how standards are compared to the one reference that you have. You can always come back to another perspectives just on the environment, and again removing issues that are not relevant for your analysis. And by checking out the table below, you will be able to see, for instance, which elements have been covered, are covered by the various initiatives. This comes to the end of the comparison features. So additional international references will be added to the module for the FSI. So we discussed about global gap, but also the GSCP approach for the social compliance, probably also other frameworks such as the ILO conventions or other recognized international references. All these could be added in the next version of the platform, which will be then the ITC FSI customized mapping of the standards. Last but not least, I mean, there is a self-assessment module which we think is very important to ensure that those sustainability elements are brought into the hands of the SMEs, the producers, the exporters. And this is where you see, by hitting the self-assessment button, a company would have the choice to select a few standards and say, I'm interested in actually getting certified against either Fair Flowers, Fair Plants, or the Flor Verde seal and certification program. An SME could tell in the system, hey, I am already certified against Global Gap. If that's the case, just select it from the list and it will pre-fill your self-assessment. The pre-filling is a very nice feature because then it makes you save time, and when you load the questionnaire, when you load the new self-assessment questionnaire for an SME to understand where they position themselves vis-a-vis the one certification or the other, then some of the information would already be pre-filled. So here, just in a few words, you see that any criteria from the database has been turned into questions, like, are there policies in place aiming to maintain good soil fertility and avoiding soil erosion or contamination? Yes, no, not yet. I mean, if you click not yet, then you can mention that as a producer, you'd like to do it, but you do not have the capacity to do it within less than 1 or 3 years. So you can select whatever solution fits you best. You can leave a comment. You can also call in the data from the standards that will just highlight to you where to find more information, like in this case, Flor Verde, soil conservation and erosion. What kind of information do you have from the standard? And hitting the source document will actually drive you to the Flor Verde website if you need more information. Idea being that by the end of the day, you have filled the questions and you can launch a certain report. And I will not do it here because I haven't filled the whole questionnaire, but the idea is that it generates a gap analysis between a certain situation for production that you may have and a set of selected standards. I will stop here for this quick demo of the standards map. Maybe if there are a few concluding remarks, it would be that we are currently in the process of identifying all the necessary filters that would be added to the platform in order to fit the floriculture sustainability initiative. So additional filters, saying for instance, if you deal about certification of flowers in Africa versus Latin America, maybe you have a number of hotspots that are a little bit different, like water issue, work and labor right issues, safety at work might be different in terms of priority depending on the context. So the current standards map platform is really black and white type data. Does the standard cover this issue? Yes, no, and how does it do it? What kind of audit process do you have behind? The FSI perspective will really add value to it by providing to the user those additional filters that are necessary to understand from a sourcing perspective. So you're a trader, you're a retailer, what are the key elements that you need to know in order to select your selected standards, to identify and push suppliers towards either one certification or another, or at least to encompass a few sustainability practices into their production methods. Thank you so much for your attention. So this is all about transparency, comparability, and learning. Do not hesitate to get back to us at ITC if you have questions about the tool, and this will be a pleasure to actually respond any question you may have. Don't hesitate to contact me. So Mathieu Lamol, the Standards Database and Benchmarking Officer here with the Standards Map, and of course vis-a-vis the FSI team for this joint collaboration. Thank you so much and have a very nice day. Bye bye.